Hello, everyone. I'm Hello, everyone. My name is EJ3. My real name is Ed Johnson, and this is the start of a new blog series that I'm going to start doing, discussing various topics of interest. I'll preface by saying that, as I've said in previous video presentations that I've occasionally put on, I've done some that mainly focused on travel, and in particular travel to Brazil, because I've been fortunate to have had the opportunity in the past to have traveled to various parts of Brazil on several occasions, including to the well-known Rio de Janeiro, to Salvador, which has an excellent cultural value to people of African descent, Black African descent, and I've discussed those at length, and individuals that have had the opportunity to listen to them, I'll try not to rehash the same aspects unless they relate to what I want to try to get into today. And this is coming from mainly an anecdotal perspective, because on the previous videos that I've done, as I'm making reference to that I've done, I presented more information, more factual data related. But this is not that. This is more on an anecdotal level. And it relates to my experience and my perspectives, my opinions that I might have had prior to my travel experiences, as opposed to what I learned and what I've learned, the reality of what things were. And I'm going to present that to you, and that may be a benefit to you if you're intending on travel or if you have traveled. And again, this is relating to primarily, like I said, to my perspectives of and my insights that I gained when I traveled to Brazil. I've also made one trip to Curacao, and I also have been to Mexico, to Rosarito, Mexico, and Tijuana. Though Tijuana is so touristy, and it's right on the border. That experience is not really that insightful for people that live in California or live around that area, etc. And also to Curacao. I can't remember if I mentioned that already, so if I have, the redundancy. Now, I'll start with the well-known Brazil first. Now, many people have delved into that in terms of how it relates to African Americans, and in particular African American men, and the whole issue of how it is in terms of finding a significant other and how they're treated. That's been discussed even by myself at length. So I'm just going to go into the realities of it from my perspective. And I'm not from the academic world. I think I've alluded to that in my previous videos. Again, this is just from my experience and my insights and what I gained, whatever. Now, let's start with Rio first. Rio is it's everything that you might have imagined in terms of when you see the video presentations on the travel logs, etc., in terms of the overall scope of the city, the physical structure, the physicality. It's very beautiful in that sense, going to Copacabana Beach, just to go there and just relax. To me, besides just the visuals of seeing the beautiful Brazilian women, the beautiful beachfront, the sandy beaches, the landscape, the shoreline, all those things are, from a visual standpoint, very beautiful. But one thing I did notice, just starting with Copacabana Beach, is that there were a lot of poor people, and primarily people that would be considered black in the U.S., that had to hustle to try to make ends meet. Because what I found out upon doing some research and just actually just checking out just in a general sense, is that they were coming from the nearby favelas to go to the beach to sell their wares, usually towels, trinkets, food items, such as peanuts in a bag, things that are local to the Brazilian culture there in terms of culinary delights or whatever, just to try to make ends meet, And so a lot of times what I've observed is that tourists, particularly white European tourists, if I could discern that, or white Americans, white in general, they thought of them as a nuisance or whatever, get away from me, whatever, but they were trying to make ends meet. A lot of times they'd have their families out there, in a sense of like, there were several occasions where I would be approached by, like a mother that might have her kids also helping out selling, or someone that might have their little brother trying to, sell the products, the beach towels, beach wraps, etc. And also on Sundays, they had an event called the Feira Hippie, which that was in Ipanema in Rio, where it would just be like a large, like flea market, for lack of a better description. And vendors would be able to sell their wares or whatever. You can get good values or whatever. But at any rate, the point being is that the financial wealth and beauty was not shared equally by the whole population. What I saw is that, even to a greater extent, here in there as opposed to the United States, that people that were black there, they were definitely on the bottom. And there wasn't like a stratification of a black middle class, a large black middle class. That was something that was pretty non-existent from what I could see. It was like, a few people that had a lot of money that were of black descent, or Pardue, which is like mixed there. But again, in terms of the racial dynamics, our one drop mentality here in the United States, they would be considered black. So let's just say, just say the lighter complexion black people there, whatever. And many times I saw that they might be working in industries and have professional level jobs, but the vast majority of people that would be clearly defined as black here in the United States, they were at the bottom of the barrel. And when I say bottom of the barrel, I know they can see, a lot of times you say that poverty is all relative, but these people were, really destitute. They would be considered destitute, living on the street, street kids and things of that nature. So that kind of saddened me. Now, in regards to the whole issue of meeting a significant other, the women and all that, like people have gone to that, there's guys that are in there. And I've sort of talked about that in a couple of previous videos. But the bottom line is that, that is basically overplayed, First of all, I don't care what someone says. There have been other people that say, well, you don't need to, have a working knowledge of Portuguese or whatever. You can just go down there and just meet. Man, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. If you're getting beyond the superficial. If you're just going down there just to have a good time, and do what you do, whatever, there's a market for that, and like poor black women and mixed race women that would flock into the cities, like say into Rio or whatever, they're catering to that fantasy, that need, So anybody that comes back to the United States and starts being braggadocious and saying that they, they were easily got out of the women, they got out of pocket. The got out of pocket might be in many different forms, and because of the value of the U.S. dollar as opposed to the real or reais, in terms of the money or dinero in Brazil, you can get a good rate exchange. But basically, you're not getting something for nothing. And I'm not disparaging the women the ones that do that or whatever. I'm not a preacher or anything, and I'm not disparaging or making moral judgments of men. You do what you do. If that's what you want to do, whatever, that's up to you. You have to deal with your own conscience and moral center or whatever. That's your business, not mine. But I just want to pass on to people that it's not like, you're just not going to just go down. It's just basically just like any other place. I mean, you're not going to just, some woman's going to swoon on your feet. That's movie land stuff. That's not reality, so, that reality. In terms of, the social structure is, again, I said it's very white oriented. In terms of ethnic hairstyles, I mean, they really frown on that. I've talked about that before. It's like basic stuff that you think that, and I'm going to continue this in a second part of my video, so bear with me. A second video will be coming up. Thank you for listening. Listen for part. Hello again. This is EJ3 Perspective. This is September the 10th, 2017. And this is a continuation of the conversation that I had started in regards to travel, an anecdotal perspective on this first premiere episode of my show, the EJ3 Perspective. Again, my name is Ed Johnson. And I had left off with talking about Rio de Janeiro. That's how it's pronounced in Portuguese, Brazilian Brazilian Portuguese, I should say. But at any rate, so the crux of, to sum it up, the crux of it is that in terms of actual society in Brazil, in particular in Rio, unfortunately, people that are clearly of black African descent, as well as individuals that are Pardo, mulatto, but Pardo is actually the word for that's utilized in Brazil. Those individuals that would be considered black, and making it sum it up in a nutshell, they're definitely at the bottom of the social strata in Rio, and not just in Rio or Rio, just in terms of Brazil in general. The racism is definitely more blatant. That's what I found. That was a jarring aspect. And at the time, the first time that I went to Brazil, before my hair started getting really gray, as you can see, I had long dreadlocks. My appearance was a little bit different than what it is now. And, I had no idea. I just assumed that, it wouldn't make a difference or whatever. But definitely, I mean, the saving grace is that, with me being an American, I was treated a little bit, I was treated as an American, not like a white American or like as a European overall, but knowing that I wasn't from there, me having the dreads wasn't as big of an issue, but a clearly Afrocentric look is really looked down upon in Brazil. That was a surprising thing that kind of shocked me, considering, as I think many people know already, that the vast majority of slaves that were brought to the so-called New World, significant portion went to Brazil, and in particular northern Brazil. But at any rate, just basic stuff that we think that, even for racial aspects of America, there it's like, wow, and they're really blatant about it, like the guy, you look like a pickaninny, you see all sorts of the best sources to pick out. And again, I was going to try not to get into, citing sources and, references or whatever, because I've done that in previous videos. But a good one would be, that's online, you can get it on Facebook, is Black Women of Brazil. They present a lot of those type of things that I'm making references, the real day, everyday experience, in particularly for black Brazilians in general, and black women in particular, or Afro-Brasileiras in Brazil in particular. Okay, so in a nutshell, in terms of the vacation experience, is everything and more. I would definitely say to check out all the well-known things, going to Sugarloaf Mountain, obviously seeing the Christ the Redeemer statue. All those things, definitely that should be on the agenda. And also in terms of nightlife, for people that like to party and experience the aspects of that aspect, they also have types of scala balls. You can check online and get vacation packages to partake of that experience. It's a good thing too. It's not the real life experience, but to get a more clear perspective, there's also a lot of now I wouldn't say a lot, but there's some agencies that present tours to the favelas. Now a lot of times people might say, well, is it sort of like I'm going to see the poor black people, mainly black people, like they're specimens in the zoo or whatever? You can partake of those things. I went to 3 favelas in Rio or Rio, and I tried to do it from a perspective of just trying to learn about the real, as opposed to like, I'm some, black American, going there, or American in general, just to look down upon them people, because we know that, for people that are of black African descent, that, we're not in any position to look down upon anybody anyway. So, you can get a clear perspective of how things are. It's like what was amazing about that for me in terms of, visiting the favelas is that, despite the hardships or whatever, they had basically like an underground thing going, in terms of like they had internet hookups, they had cable TV things, and it was other than legal means. I guess it would be comparable to like the I got a hookup type of scenario here in the United States or whatever, but it was really done. The thing about the drug trafficking and things like that is a real aspect and a real fear. However, it's not as random as you may believe, or you may have seen in the media or whatever. People that live in the favelas or whatever, they're protected. A lot of times from what I learned is that the drug lords that control the different sectors of the particular favelas or whatever, they're basically like the old time gangsters in the most general sense, in the sense of like they're protecting their sector. They're not going to just go off killing people or whatever, but then strange people coming into their areas or whatever, they're very protective about that or whatever. Now, obviously, dealing drugs is wrong, all the aspects of that are wrong. But in terms of, I guess, again, hearkening it back to the, criminal mentality type days of like the old Sicilian and Italian structure of like how it really was, not just like in the Hollywood movies, in terms of protecting their community. Those aspects are really true. And a lot of times it's the police, just like here, in the United States, that, that actually have a vendetta against those pure people there. And so they're the ones that are perpetuating a lot of the violence against the black people that are in the favelas. And, a lot of racism, as I put, a lot of racism. Things that, it's way worse in many aspects than it is here in the United States. Now, moving from Rio to Salvador, oh man, I really didn't know that much about Salvador at the first time that I went there. But from a black cultural experience, go to Pelourinho, which is an old time neighborhood that they preserve, you can just see all aspects of Afro-Brazilian culture there. They've got the Modelo, which is like a large flea market, but it's enclosed. It's similar to the one that I told you about, the Fair Hippie in Rio. However, this has more of an Africanized perspective. You'll be able to see that for yourself. Check it out. Look online. Look it up. They've got the Elevator Lacerda, that's there too. But also too, the authentic, ones, carnival parades, that if you can go to Pelourinho to experience those, they're much more, authentic than like, say, the samba stuff. Samba's not really that big in Salvador, that aspect of it. They have their own more Africanized musical styles. Again, research it, check it online. So that's really good. They also have the Camarotes, which is on a larger scale. And from what I'm gathering, it's becoming taken over, more commercialized or whatever. But, that's sort of different from the samba-led carnival parades in Rio too. So check those out. That's really nice. Now, Sao Paulo, the third major city that I went to there, that's sort of put me in mind of more like a New York City. It's much more Europeanized. The whole area of from what I saw of southern Brazil, the Eurocentric presence or gene pool is much stronger there than in northern Brazil. And the reason why that is, with getting into a brief history primer is because there was a policy of trying to whiten up the country, and so a lot of Italian and German immigrants, whatever, went there. You know, think of that guy, the quarterback Tom Brady's wife. You know, she's Brazilian, but you know her lineage is of European descent, or whatever. So, I also got a chance to make a brief stop over in Manaus. That's going up toward the Amazon, you know, to check that out. That was kind of interesting. Didn't get a chance to go to the Amazon, but flew over it leaving out, you know. In terms of Curacao, that was a nice experience too. Stayed there for about 3 or 4 days a few years ago. There comes from a Dutch extraction, but I have a video on that deals with the Black History Museum in Willestad. I would advise anybody that goes there to go there. Man, that is awesome. It's like a nice long tour, you know, and they have a lot of artifacts dealing from the times of slavery or whatever. It is a fascinating and a very educational experience. I'm going to delve into Mexico a little bit on my next blog, which will be, I'm going to originally put out next Sunday. So I appreciate everyone that took time out of their day to look at this part 2 of my EJ3 perspective, and I dealt with travel in an anecdotal manner. I hope everyone has a good, productive week and fun times with your family and friends. So you take care.